Hey everyone, it's Mike from Destinations to Travel. Tonight we are at Halloween Horror Nights. And our objective here tonight is to provide a guide for those who are kind of on the fence on whether or not you want to come to Halloween Horror Nights. Maybe you've heard how much some people love the event, your friends, your family come every year, but you're not such a big horror fan. We're gonna take a walk around the event and provide some tips and tricks for those who are not necessarily looking for a super intense, scary experience. So, let's go. Is the jingle gonna be weird in this setting? Let's find out. Okay, the first tip, or I guess more misconception that I want to address, is that the park or the event is just an all-around scare fest. That's not necessarily the case. There are 10 haunted houses, and there are 4 scare zones, as well as some streetmosphere events going on around the park. Outside of those areas, there's really no scares. So I'm standing up here at the front of the park right now, and there's nothing happening out here. There is one variable this year. Art the Clown, the star of the Terrifier films, does roam the park freely, and he could show up anywhere. That being said, he's not a super scary experience in person. He's more of a comedy act, which is actually really fun, and I've seen him interact with some guests in a lot of fun ways. So you're not really gonna get, and it's honestly 100 to 1 that he's gonna show up where you are anyway. It's kind of difficult to find. But even if he does find you, or you find him, whichever way you want to look at it, he's not the super scary experience that you might think. He's, like I said, it's more of a fun comedy routine. But there are plenty of spaces around the park where you're not gonna get scared, generally speaking. And we'll point some of those out as we make our way around. We're also gonna make our way around the park, avoiding the scare zones as much as possible, and I'll provide some tips and tricks along the way to help you do that. So as you enter the park for Halloween Horror Nights, you are welcomed into the Origins of Horror scare zone here. And so obviously there's gonna be some scare actors in here, and this kind of stretches all the way up to the start of Minion Cafe area. Actually, a little bit before that. We'll take a walk through it and I'll show you where it ends. But there are ways around this scare zone too. All right, so this is the far end of that scare zone, right at the Art the Clown statue. And it might stretch just a little bit out to this corner or so. But really the scare actors from the scare zone won't extend past here. And then all of this area over here, up until you get to Fallon in the New York area, this is not a scare zone. So there will be no scares over here, again, except maybe Art the Clown, but odds are you won't see him over here. So you're safe when you're in this area, at least, you know, relatively safe. Now, with that being said, I want to walk back through the scare zone to kind of give you guys an idea of what the scare zone experience is like. So I'll do this without any cuts or anything, so you can kind of just see what it's really like in person. And we have to go back up to the front anyway, so makes sense. And I will say, the scare zones are not the scary part of this event. They are more for like atmosphere. They will be, you know, there will be scares, there will be scare actors getting people here. But generally, there's so many people walking around that the odds of them going for you aren't very likely, unless you're the super jumpy, screamy, you know, really big show type of person. Or sometimes if you're holding a camera, sometimes they like that too. But, I mean, as you see, you know, I had a couple of scare actors look at me, but that was about it. And again, your experience might be different. You also might get some inadvertent scares when somebody else nearby. But yeah, that's your typical scare zone experience. Walking through, you might get 1 or 2 scares, but it's pretty easily avoidable. And I'm gonna show you how. So we're back up at the front of the scare zone now, and my biggest tip is right here. Sidewalks. They are open. Generally speaking, the scare zones take place in the streets. You can simply walk to the side and avoid all of this. Now, it's not 100% guaranteed that a scare actor won't come up on the sidewalk, but generally speaking, they won't. And now I can just bypass and either keep going straight towards New York, or I'm gonna make a right into the Hollywood area where there is another scare zone. And you'll see we can do the same thing with this scare zone up here. So this year in the Hollywood area, we have the Masquerade Dance with Death scare zone, a vampire masquerade party. You can see the set pieces start right there. The scare actors might come out just a little bit further, but probably not too much. And again, if you don't want to go through the scare zone, which by the way, I do recommend checking them out at least a little bit to get some of the experience. But if you want to avoid it, sidewalks right here. And you can go on the other side as well. And so if you want to get to some of the shops, or if you just want to pass by to the back of the park, you can do that. One other thing I want to mention as far as the scare zones are concerned this year, Halloween Horror Nights is offering a new piece of merchandise called the Deathly Afraid necklace. And when you're wearing it, it basically lets the scare actors know that you're not looking for an intense experience, and they'll kind of ease off a little bit. It does not guarantee a fully no scare experience, so you do have to still be aware when you're walking through the scare zones, you might get some scares. You're just not going to get as many scares. So that could help. And that can be found in the Halloween Horror Nights Tribute Store, which is in the New York area of the park. And the Tribute Store is open during normal daytime operations as well. So you can go in there and pick up your necklace before Halloween Horror Nights if you're visiting. Or, you know, maybe have someone braver go into New York to get it for you. I should also clarify, those necklaces do not have any effect in the haunted houses. So keep that in mind. If you're gonna go into one of the haunted houses, the necklace won't make a difference. The scare actors in there won't really be able to see that you're wearing it in time to kind of pull off of the scare. So they can't really do too much in there. And with that being said, the haunted houses are by far the scariest part of the event. So that's another tip for you. The scariest part of the event is 100% gonna be one of the 10 haunted houses. I will say this year it's a little bit more tame as far as the scariness of the haunted houses, but they're still gonna be much scarier than the scare zones or any other element of the event. So if you are sort of on the edge and you don't really know if you wanna do the super scary stuff, maybe just avoid the haunted houses, enjoy the atmosphere of the park itself. Of course, there are 10 of them, so some of the houses are scarier than others. And if you're coming later in the event, you get a better idea of what's gonna be the scarier house. You can always ask your destination's travel advisor, your friends and family who have come already. Anyone you know. You can ask me if you like. Comment on this video, ask me what are the scariest houses this year. Right now, I think it's a tamer lineup. There's not really a super scary house, and I've only gone through each one once or twice. Jason Universe, maybe the scariest one? Kind of tough to tell at this point, but definitely ask for opinions on which ones are the scariest and which ones are a little bit lighter in terms of scare. Now, this is the end of the Masquerade Scare Zone. However, this year, we've got a little streetmosphere going on outside of Mel's Die-In. And if you're not familiar, that's just Mel's Drive-In with a couple of lights out. But Mel's Die-In is a staple of Halloween Horror Nights. And this year, for the first time ever, we have zombie servers walking around. Now, again, this is not a super scary experience. They're zombies. They generally move pretty slow, although some of them are on roller skates sometimes. We're getting a little bit of rain tonight, so you're not seeing them. Oh no, they are. There goes one right now. But they're more fun than anything else. And I will say, I don't think you can really avoid these as much, unless you're up on the sidewalk over there. I don't think they go that far out. Ah, whoa, hello. Ah. Hi. See, fun experience. But anywhere over here around Mel's Die-In is where you're gonna find these zombies. So I guess if you just stay around that other sidewalk to pass by, pretty easy to avoid. Now that brings us to the Central Park area, where there is another scare zone that we'll talk about in just a little bit here. But before we do, I wanted to talk about Hauntaphonic, a ghoulish journey. So there are 2 shows here at Halloween Horror Nights. There's this one, which is a projection music show on the lagoon. And there is Nightmare Fuel, which is back in the Fear Factor stage, and that is a variety, magic, dance, pyro show, which has been featured in different variations over the last few years here at Halloween Horror Nights. Those are 2 really great shows that are not gonna be super scary experiences as well. You're gonna be sitting, in the case of Nightmare Fuel, at least, you'll be sitting in a theater. Here for Hauntaphonic, you'll be standing looking out at the lagoon. There are no scares involved aside from, you know, some loud music cues, maybe some explosions, things like that in Nightmare Fuel. But no scare actors coming out to get you. So if you want to take a break from the scares, check out one of these 2 shows. I'll also say you can watch Hauntaphonic, A Ghoulish Journey in its entirety right here on our YouTube channel. Now, that brings us to our next scare zone, and this year it is the Cat Lady of Crooked Lane. This scare zone in particular is the most difficult one to avoid when you're walking through this area of the park, at least, because there really are no sidewalks that take you away from everything the entire way through. So you do kind of have to go through. You can walk through Central Park, but that's going to put you out still sort of in the scare zone. There is a way to get around the entire area, and we'll take that walk and show you how you can avoid the scare zone if you really don't want to see it. But that being said, this is one of the most visually impressive scare zones, and I think one of the coolest. Oh. But like I said, if you do not want to walk through this scare zone, maybe you're afraid of cats, you can still get to the back of the park without going through it. And that would be by simply heading this way towards Transformers. So the fourth and final scare zone is in the New York area of the park, which is up at the front of the park as well. So there's really no other scare zones going this way. I guess you do kind of have to dodge the zombies over here, but again, sidewalks are your friend. So you can just come right up here. And now you have two options. You can kind of go around the corner. You can cut through here at the HHN bar. And here you'll find some photo ops. Although again, right now, a little bit of rain, so I don't know if we're gonna have any characters up on the stage. And again, these are just photo ops. They're not really scares. You'll see characters from some of the original houses on these stages, and they'll pose for pictures, which is a fun addition that we saw last year at Halloween Horror Nights for the first time. But as you keep coming around this way, like I said, towards the entrance to Transformers over here, there's no scare zones going this way. There is Club Horror over in the San Francisco area, but we'll get to that eventually. By the way, this is probably a good time to remind you too that the scare actors cannot touch you while you're in the scare zones or in the haunted houses. They will not touch you at all, you know, at least not on purpose. It gets crowded some nights. You might bump into some guests, but there will be no contact, and you should never ever touch a scare actor. So it goes both ways. You don't want to, no touching involved. And while we're up here at the entrance to Transformers, it's a good time to remind you too that several attractions are open during Halloween Horror Nights, including Transformers, Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts, Revenge of the Mummy, and Men in Black Alien Attack. So you can ride some of your favorite rides while you're here at Halloween Horror Nights as well. There will be no scares on those either, so you are safe while you're in the queues and on the rides. There will be no scares there. They'll be your favorite attractions just as you know them during the day. And typically you'll see some shorter wait times. So it's a good time to ride some of your favorite rides as well. Now, from right in front of Transformers, we are going to eventually head towards the back of the park, but I'm gonna make a left turn right now, and we're gonna head up to the New York area. Again, there is a scare zone over there, but before we get there, we're gonna check out some of the food booths. And as I'm making my way up to the New York area, I found Art the Clown. And you can see there's a crowd of people gathered around him here. So it's really not like he's gonna catch you off guard. Like I said, more of a comedy act. So food and drink is a huge part of the event as well. So if you just want to come out and try some unique food and beverage offerings, there's a lot of them. You'll find food booths all throughout the park. Right up here in the New York area, you're going to find a whole bunch of them. I think we have 4 different food booths up here, plus a bar. So there's a lot of fun and really, really delicious options here for Halloween Horror Nights. Definitely recommend trying a few. And I will also mention that while you're in line for any food or drink, you're not going to have any scare actors approaching you. There are lines in the New York area, like for the Fallout booth, that are kind of adjacent to the scare zone. But typically when you're in the line, a scare actor is not going to come for you. They're going to go for the guests that are running away and screaming. That goes for the restaurants, the normal restaurants that are open, like the Minion Cafe. When you're in there, you're not going to find any scare actors coming after you. And that also extends, as you might expect, to restrooms. I feel like I shouldn't have to say that, but some guests might be afraid. You're not gonna find any scare actors in the bathroom. And by the way, that same rule applies to the lines for the haunted houses as well. So let's say you get talked into waiting for one of those haunted houses, you at least don't have to be on edge the entire time you're waiting in line. There aren't gonna be any scares while you're waiting for the house. Again, once you get into the house, that's where you're into the scariest part of the event. So keep that in mind. All right, now we have reached Jimmy Fallon. Back this way is Minion Land. This is the Minion Cafe right on the corner. And then straight down there is the entrance to the park. And between us and the entrance is the Origins of Horror scare zone. So like I said, the fourth and final scare zone that we haven't seen yet is in the New York area, and this is gonna be Mutations, Toxic 20s. It is a toxic spill after a bank robbery from some gangsters in the 1920s, and everybody's mutating. Kind of goes along with the name. It's a fun scare zone. There's a lot of really, really fun interactive characters, but also pretty easy to avoid. All right, I just popped into the Tribute store here in the New York area, and it turns out this is not where you get the Scared to Death or the Deathly Afraid necklace. I've now heard two different names, so I'm not sure. But, hi. I was, however, told that you can get them here at the Universal Studios store up at the front of the park, which makes way more sense because you can access this store without having to go through any of the scare zones, whereas the Tribute store in New York, you can't really. And those necklaces can be found right at the register, so just go right up to the register and ask the cashier for the necklace. All right, let's put everything to the test. I'm back up at the front of the park. This is the entrance to the first scare zone, the Origins of Horror scare zone. We're gonna walk from here all the way to the back of the park to Men in Black Alien Attack, and we're gonna avoid as many scares as we possibly can. We'll see how scary the experience actually is. This will give you a good idea of how you can maneuver around the park in real time. We're not gonna do any more cuts. I'm gonna treat this like a live stream, and we'll see how this goes walking to the back of the park. So, from right here at the Origins of Horror scare zone, first trip, first trick. Like I said, no more cuts. First tip, trick, trip, whatever. Sidewalks. Sidewalks are your friend. So we could go from here either way. We can go straight towards the New York area. I'm gonna stay to the right, and we're gonna head into the Hollywood area. Now again, we sort of looked at how you can go either way here. But I'm gonna stay towards the Hollywood area here. And I do have one more tip for you, and this is the hardest one to follow as we make our way into the Hollywood area here. But it really is the biggest difference maker, aside from, just avoiding the scare zones altogether. But if you can do it, it really helps. And that's, try not to react big. Don't act like the scared person. If you can not do that, you're not as much of a target. The scare actors want the screams. They want the big reactions. If you look like somebody who's gonna give them the big reaction, they're gonna go for you. So, keep your head up and just, confidently walk through. But that being said, we can also avoid the scares as much as possible. So let's stay on these sidewalks here. I'm gonna stay to the right because that'll keep us away from Mel's die-in and those zombies. You'll see there are some guests also walking the sidewalks. There are also guests sitting over on the sidewalks here. See, there's some benches here. I know it's dark, it's hard to see anything, but typically, if you sit on the benches or just walk on the sidewalks, scare actors aren't gonna pay you any attention. They might try to interact with you if it's a slower night and just kind of hang out. They can be a lot of fun. We've had a lot of really fun experiences hanging out with scare actors throughout the event. I've actually made some friends that way, so it's definitely fun interacting with them. But again, you can avoid it. Whoa. There are like show elements to the scare zones as well, so that you might have some loud cues and things like that. Those are unfortunately unavoidable, but at least, you don't have the scare actor in your face while you're doing it. All right, we're gonna make our way past these zombies here. And then we're gonna avoid the Cat Lady of Crooked Lane scare zone, and we're gonna go hard left towards Transformers. And we'll cut through that HHN bar again. I just love the way the vibe changes from zone to zone. So you go from those, dark vampire chants into Johnny Be Good as we come past Mel's die-in. So again, Cat Lady of Crooked Lane will be straight ahead, but like we said earlier, that is the most difficult scare zone to maneuver because there really aren't sidewalks that you could use to avoid everyone. I'm kind of skirting past the zombies here a little bit, but pretty easy to avoid. And we're gonna head towards this HHN bar as we head towards Transformers, and then we'll head back to the San Francisco area. Oh, and like I said earlier, you have these photo ops with some of the characters that you can see in some of the houses. And now we have a couple of them out, but they stay on these stages. So if you want a photo or a video with them or anything, they're usually a lot of fun to interact with, but they're not gonna chase you off of those stages. All right, so we are up to Transformers now. And again, we could have gone straight and made a right just before the New York area to come this way too. I just chose to go the Hollywood way. And again, some of your favorite attractions will be open during Halloween Horror Nights, including Transformers and Revenge of the Mummy over in New York, Men in Black Alien Attack, and Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts as well. So here's the street you would come down if you went straight towards the New York area. You make that hard right at the food booths, and that would take you down this street here towards San Francisco. And there are no scares in this area. Again, all of this is assuming you don't run into Art the Clown, but we saw him earlier. He's not exactly, you know, out to scare everyone. He's more of a fun, interactive experience. Now, I did come this way to, well, I mean, I guess we had to go this way to avoid the Cat Lady of Crooked Lane, but this way also takes us through Club Horror, which is over in the San Francisco area. It's not really a scare zone. It is like it sounds. It's a club. It's like a dance club. There's a bar over there. You're not really gonna find any scares in there. There's gonna be dancers in costumes, I guess is the best way to put that. And you'll see what I mean in just a few seconds here, but not really any scares. So that's good. You can avoid that. Now, the last few years across the lagoon here over in Springfield, there had been no scares. However, previous years there had been chainsaws going through Springfield, and they are back this year. So Springfield, not necessarily a safe place this year. I will say, if you want some, you know, liquid courage, Springfield is my favorite place to go for that because Dufftoberfest is probably my favorite beer in the world. Now, the entrance to the Jason Universe house is over here at the Fast and Furious Supercharged attraction. But you see, we made it this far, no scares. Some loud music cues and things like that, but that's about it. We'll say the San Francisco area always ends up being a little bit more crowded, and I think the stage show back in the Fear Factor stage, Nightmare Fuel, has a lot to do with that. There are also entrances to multiple houses back here, so you're gonna see a lot of traffic flow going this way. But now we're entering Club Horror. You're not gonna be able to hear me for a few seconds here. Oh, there's Art. You see, he was just dancing. So again, Art, not the scariest experience. I will say I've never seen those movies, so I can't speak to those. And again, the house is a much different experience. The house, the Terrifier house, is gonna be much scarier than seeing Art out in the park. There is a black phone photo op over here, and occasionally the grabber will be in there, but he's, again, just there for photo ops. He's not running around chasing you to scare you. There are no scare actors out in the London area, so there's no scares to worry about over here. However, if you go into Diagon Alley, you can see the Death Eaters, and that is, I guess they're technically scare actors, but they're not really jumping out to scare you as much as some of the other scare actors around the park. So it's a less intense experience. It is a really, really fun experience. If you're a Harry Potter fan, absolutely have to head into Diagon Alley to see the Death Eaters. It is such a cool experience. And we'll be back to check out the Death Eaters. And we'll have a video of them right here on our YouTube channel in the near future, so keep an eye out for that. When we do have that up, we will link that in the description. So if you're watching this video a little bit later, you'll find it there. So from here, we could go right across the bridge over to Springfield. I'm gonna keep going straight and show you guys where the Nightmare Fuel show is.
I literally got my last one in the car.
Here is the Fear Factor stage, where you'll find Nightmare Fuel Circus of Decay. And again, this is like a variety, magic, pyro, dancing, pyro, lots and lots of pyro type of show. Again, more food booths all around, more bars, plenty of places to get food and drinks. And there's a lot of really good food, like way better than it needs to be honest. Now we pass a couple of entrances to the houses here. This is where you'll find the entrance for Fallout, as well as Gulkin, Monsters of the North. Now the houses are actually way back in the corner, so you do have a bit of a walk from here to get to them. But this is how you get to both of those houses, down this walkway here. But we have made it. We are back to Men in Black Alien Attack, all the way in the back of the park. So we started all the way up the front, made it all the way to the back, and I'll let you be the judge as to whether or not that was a scary experience. That's totally up to you, because that is subjective. But I don't know. To me, we really just traversed the entire park without really getting any scares. So there you have it. There's our guide to Halloween Horror Nights 34 for those who don't really want to be scared all that much. Call it a scaredy cat guide, whatever you want to call it. But hopefully this helps. Hopefully you found that walkthrough to be really helpful. You know, you can use some of these tips and tricks to avoid some of the scares. That being said, I do recommend embracing a little bit of the scares. You know, if you're on the fence, just experience the event a little bit, however you want to, really. There are a lot of ways around the super intense experiences. I recommend trying out at least one of the haunted houses. Maybe don't rush through all 10, because again, those are the scariest part of the event for sure. If you found this video helpful, if you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up. Comment down below, you know, any questions you might have about Halloween Horror Nights, whether it's this year or the event in general going forward. I'll do my best to answer however I can. And if you want to start planning your Halloween Horror Nights vacation, head over to d2travel.com or send us an email at info@d2travel.com, and let one of our amazing advisors do all the heavy lifting and planning your trip at no additional cost to you. But that's going to do it for us tonight. Thanks again, everyone. I'll see you all real soon. Bye.
Destinations to travel, where the world is yours. Destinations to travel.